The boy had cried himself to sleep in Adam's arms. Adam had laid the small man down in the cleanest side of the cage, even taking off his own shirt to make a rudimentary pillow for the youth as he slept. When the door creaked open, he looked up to find the Duchess herself strutting into the room, flanked by 2 guards, one of which took charge of the door, while the other followed her master into the room. The Duchess scrunched her brows, looking at Adam, and the peacefully sleeping teen. "What's this?" she asked. "Were you a proper lady, helping your plaything get dressed after you were done with him? Did he scream and beg for it?" "You know," Adam chuckled darkly, "torture is one thing. I've been tortured before. Hell, I've tortured before. But whatever the fuck you expected to happen, that's some seriously fucked shit." "I'm sorry," she responded, as her eyebrows furrowed in confusion. "You want to know a secret, Duchess?" Adam asked, quirking a brow and smiling. The Duchess made a go-on gesture with her left hand as she raised her brows. Adam continued the smile and beckoned her over to the edge of his cage with his left index finger. She sighed audibly, but suddenly walked over to the side of the cage, dramatically canting her head as if to help herself hear. Adam internally chuckled, even as his arm darted out to grab the collar of her shirt, slamming the side of her face into the bars of the cage. "I'm gonna fucking burn this place to the damn ground," he barked directly into her ear as she struggled to get out of his grasp. With his other hand, he threw a solid punch into her left temple before throwing her back, sprawling across the hard concrete floor. "I'm gonna fucking kill all your guards. Then I'm gonna come for you," he growled, grabbing the bars with both white-knuckled hands as he roared his threats. "I just ain't decided on whether I'm gonna kill you, or whether I'll drag you back to Earth, leave you for the resistance fighters. Maybe have them fuck out your eyeballs. 2 cents, 2 sockets. Hell, I could make a couple mil that way." "Why, you stiffy brother fucking son of—" the Duchess roared, rapidly pushing herself on the floor before the door slammed open and a panicked-looking ducal guard ran into the room. "Duchess!" the guard yelled, out of breath. "I'm busy!" Vic Shelley yelled back, shucking off her overcoat. "Duchess, we got transport craft on the horizon from the capital. They look like glaive transport shuttles." The Duchess stuttered, her attitude rapidly falling away. "What the hell?" "We paid our tribute to the Callista this year." An explosion shook the compound before Adam grinned malevolently from his cell. He began to chuckle darkly as he flexed his fingers on the bars. "How?" the Duchess demanded, turning to Adam. "Who did you call?" "Me?" asked Adam, still chuckling like a madman. "I didn't call anyone." "I don't believe," the Duchess started before getting cut off. "My wives, however," he shrugged, stepping to the back of the cell and spreading his arms wide. "Well, they might have some friends in high places." "I'll be back after I sort this out," the Duchess promised darkly, before turning and storming out of the cell room, flanked by her guards. Adam stood still for a few minutes, listening to the sounds of battle that began to resonate off the walls. "All right," stated Adam, looking at the very unnerved young man next to him. "You ready to get out?" "How?" he stuttered, as he pensively rose to a crouch. "I'm about to teach these dumb bitches about why you shouldn't use cages older than 50 years, Adam grinned, pulling the small metal tracking bracelet out of his pocket with a mischievous smile. "Did you see that janky old-ass key they used to lock us in here? I can pick this lock easily. Alec could pick it with his damned eyes closed and one hand behind his back." With that, he snapped the metal clasp off, using the point of it to feel for the 3 small pins inside the lock, putting rotational pressure with the half-inch wide metal body of the bracelet, as he slowly but surely felt each pin click home. Within 2 minutes, the lock was open, and Adam slowly slid the door wide. "I'm Adam, by the way. Didn't have time to get properly introduced, sorry." "Janek," replied the youth softly. "Where are we going?" "With the guards distracted with whoever is attacking, we're gonna get you to safety. Then I'm going back to gut that bitch like the biggest fish in history." He grimaced as he realized another point he'd forgotten. "Hey," he said softly, turning to look at the man. "Are there more of you? Kidnappies?" Yes," he replied, nodding sadly. "Where?" Adam asked, as he slid next to the door, cracking it slightly as he peered into the doorway. "I'm not leaving them here." "I'll show you the way," replied Janek, a small amount of resolve forming on his bruised face. "Kill," replied Adam. "Stay behind me." Slip slid the door of the shuttlecraft open, her thermal overlaid night vision painting the 2 other shuttles flying in formation in a deep red, contrasting with the teal blue hue of the cooler forest. 20 seconds, notified the pilot over comms, as they sped towards the manor. Slip felt her heart beat faster. "All right, ladies," barked Grimm across from her, slapping Slip on the shoulder before leaning back. Our objective is to dismount as quickly as possible, maneuver to the ditch, and ensure that the rest of our team has... She was cut off as a large explosion rocked the side of the shuttle, and a voice crackled over the mission comms. Scepter, this is Thoria 3. Be advised they have AA systems in place and we're under fire. We've taken a hit to our port engine, but all systems are blue. Scepter acknowledges. Continue mission. Scepter, crackled the voice of Classy. This is Neota Actual, beginning my info now. Scepter acknowledges. Happy hunting. Keep him safe, love, thought Slip, as she turned back to face Grim, who nodded. Go to red, shouted Grim, standing up as the shuttle banked, flaring his VTOL jets perpendicular to the ground in the J-hook. As soon as they stabilized several feet off the ground, Grim shouted again, Move, move, move! Slip dropped the several feet to the ground, spreading wide to the left and taking a knee as she heard the rest of their cobbled-together pod hit the ground and fan out into an outward-facing half-circle. Scepter, came the voice of the pilot. This is Thoria 1. Packages dropped off. RTH for re-up and rearm. Acknowledged. Alright, shouted Grim, stepping forward to the head of the group as they all looked at her. Begin bounding. 2 teams, cover each other's movement. Popper, get that mortar into the ditch with the unit. Start hitting the outer sections of the wall while we wait for ABTs to bother to show up. A loud pop sounded in the distance as Grim turned and beckoned the unit to follow her, followed by almost a dozen others. The fuck? Asked one of the glazed with them, turning her head wildly around to identify the source of the sound. Rocket up! Grim began to yell, before she was cut off by a ground-shaking explosion that threw Slip nearly 5 feet back. Shaking off the concussion and rising to her feet, she felt her heart sink as she saw Grim, both of her legs mangled beyond recognition. Fuck! Slip shouted, as a round of rocket artillery struck one of the shuttles, spinning the tail around as it whirred over her head, before a bright flash and explosion rumbled from behind her. She sprinted for the down Grim, but Cell got to her just before she made it to her down commander. Go! Shouted Cell, clipping a belt-mounted hook to the back of Grim's suit. I've got her! Go! Get off the X! Slip nodded as Cell began to drag Grim backwards, away from the artillery strike, and towards where the CHP would be set up. She turned towards the ditch, unhappy at leaving her longtime commander, but reassured that the medic had her under control. She sprinted forward, rapidly gaining on the platoon-sized element that was her team, as rocket artillery began to fall heavier, rocking the planet with each dirt-throwing fireball. An explosion went off too close for comfort, striking one of the glaives and causing her to duck under a severed arm that was thrown by her skull. Slip switched to her jump kit, leaping herself a dozen yards forward and sliding into the ditch. Nice of you to make it, shouted Popper from her left, in the process of setting up the mortar tube while Ferry shucked a backpack full of rounds for her. Drepner 1, this is Crack 2. Spot warhead drop for me, walking the front wall of the compound, okay? Drepner 1 receives. Will function as spotter, 5 for direction. With that, Popper pulled one of the pointed, vaguely phallic mortar shells from the pack, held it on the edge of the tube and dropped it in. Ferry was in the prone in front of the weapon, holding the legs firmly to the dirt. Firing! Called Popper, dropping the round in and ducking away as the weapon made a deep thunk and sent a plume of fire skyward as the round was sent down range. Correct 2, this is Drepner 1. Give me 100 meters forward, bearing 125, 5 for direction. With that, Popper adjusted the dials on the machine and hung another round. Firing, she said, before dropping and ducking. A massive fireball rocked the distance, lighting up the night air and briefly overloading the night vision before the autogators kicked on until it faded. Damn fine rounds, Crack 2. 2 hostile rocket artillery trucks neutralized with shrapnel damage to the third. Walk back 10 meters, give me scattered HE barrage, walking east. Solid copy, replied Popper, before making 2 small clicks in elevation, pulling 4 rounds from the bag shortly after. Firing, she yelled, as she dropped, ducked and repeated, no less than 10 times. Classy smiled as she glided in stealth through the waves of sprinting guards, no one noticing the soft shimmer that seemed to jump from shadow to shadow as it scaled the side of the building Adam's tracker was last seen in. Gliding over the parapet wall, she moved to the doorway, finding it locked with an electronic code input. Smirking, she plugged in the cable from her right wrist and waited several seconds while the auto-hacker did its job, before the machine chirped and turned blue. Too easy, she chuckled to herself, slowly opening the door after taking out the cable and pulling her PDW. Caking around the door to find the top landing of the stairwell empty, she began her descent as explosions shook the compound, causing the lights to flicker briefly. Finishing the first flight, she found a control room with 3 very panicked technicians calling out orders over microphones and watching cameras around the compound. Smirking as she silently opened the metal door, She slid into the room without a sound. Not that the panicked technicians barking orders and calling out hostiles would have noticed if she did. Moving to the first technician, she pondered what to do. She could always sabotage the communications with an explosive, but that would definitely let someone know she'd been there. By the same hand, the mortars, more than likely being fired by Popper, would more than likely cover the explosion in the eyes of the average soldier, writing it off as an errant mortar. Given the fact that she was in the same building as Adam, she couldn't risk blowing it. Old-fashioned way it is, she thought, as she extended the wide, 2-foot-long wrist-mounted blade and plunged it into the throat of the woman closest to her, aiming her PDW at the other two and sending 2 quick bursts of automatic fire. Exhaling slowly, as she focused the weapon on the door for several seconds, she briefly scanned the room. No one came through, and she lowered the nearly headless body of the woman she'd rammed through the neck to the ground, a small metallic noise emanating as she slid off. Moving to the largest bank of equipment, she placed an EMP charge in the room, knowing they'd have a much harder time tracking her movements than those of her team if she removed the camera systems altogether. Connecting the devices to her Omnipad, she silently stalked out of the room, moving down a deserted hallway and another set of stairs before pulling the device off her wrist and activating the button. The small flicker of static across the pad's display indicated that the small localized EMPs had done their job, and she smiled as she ran down another staircase, opening a thin doorway slowly as she observed the hallway beyond. Slinking through the door, she moved steadily down the hall before freezing as she heard the telltale crackle of ionized air. Her heart sank as she heard a voice from around the corner of the hallway shout, a voice she recognized. "Fuck you!" shouted Adam distantly, before 2 cracks of fire rang out, and he screamed wordlessly in anger. "No, no, no," panicked Classy internally, as she sprinted at full speed down the hallway, rounding the corner and barreling full force into Adam, bodily sending them tumbling to the ground before her camo failed. "I'll kill you too, bitch!" he shouted breathlessly, as he rolled away from her and leveled a rifle at her face. "Wait!" she shouted, holding her hands in front of her. "Adam, it's me. It's Classy." "Indara?" he asked, lowering the rifle minutely as she took off her helmet. "Oh, thank fuck." "Why are you shirtless?" asked Classy, her eyes lowering from his face and trailing his tone physique. Don't worry about it," he replied, before gesturing to the small group of Shorvanti men with him. "Listen, I need you to get them out of here. They've spent the last few months of their lives doused with menthol and used as sex slaves." Stuttered Classy, looking between Adam and the 8 young, nervous-looking Shorvanti males. "Listen up, gents," Adam called, turning to face them and pulling Classy to his hip. "This is my wife. She's gonna get you out of here. Follow her instructions, and you'll be back with your families in a few hours." "Wait, the mission is to get you out, or safe inside during the assault," Classy responded, as Adam began to pull away, grabbing his arm. "Mission's changed. You're getting them out. I'm getting the Duchess's scalp." "We've got an entire company of glaives and commandos coming. They can handle her," chided Classy softly, looking at him in the eyes. "Can't risk it," he replied, his jaw flexing as his expression hardened. "Wherever she goes, she'll just start this same shit all over again. I'm not going to let that happen." "You don't even have your armor," Classy argued. "I was killing long before I had fancy armor, dear," he responded with a smirk, before pulling her in for a tender kiss. Breaking it, he looked her in the eyes. "Get them home safe. I'll see you on the other side." With that, he turned and sprinted down the hallway towards the manor, and the sounds of gunfire and explosions. "Adam!" Classy shouted after him, but he just waved a hand over his shoulder and disappeared into a hallway. Taking stock of her charges, Classy realized that he was, in fact, correct about his Shorvanti killing prowess, as 3 ducal guards lay dead in the hallway just past her. One had her neck twisted at an unnatural angle, another had holes in her chest, while the last had clearly been shot in the head from under the chin, ripping her skull cap off. "Fuck, okay," Classy muttered. "Alright, stay behind me, single file. Whoever's at the back, watch for threats that way, and yell if you see something. Let's move." "Damn it, Adam," she thought, as she reached for her helmet-mounted comms. "Scepter, this is Neosa Actual. Mission shift. Bring medical to the west side of the compound. Heavy-duty amnestics. And anti-menthol meds for 8 people. Heller push deeper into the compound. Watch your fire. He will be engaging combatants." "Neosa, this is Scepter. Did you say engaging combatants?" "Affirm. Not my call, Scepter. He's pissed." "Acknowledged. Passing in for onto strike teams." "You better come home, dear heart."